A daring tradition, conquering the North. Ponyville Town Hall was slowly filling to its brim, just like every Sunday evening as of late. And it's not only by locals, as one could tell by the heavy shaking of the ground and accompanied buzzing of delicate wings in the air. It didn't take long for the word to get around in Equestria, and as always, many regulars and other familiar faces would be listening and watching today. No pony who had experienced it before would want to miss it. The gray-maned Pegasus had snuck in before any pony else, and was now waiting up above in the dome-like structure, hidden between the wooden framework. She looked down on the gathering folks underneath. Even the two royal sisters were here, seating themselves on one of the many balconies. Daring Do audibly gulped, a bead of sweat dripping from her forehead, which she quickly snatched with a hoof.
Close.
She didn't want any pony to notice her up there. The entry was supposed to be as dramatic as possible. It would be no different from her other adventures. The reason for the growing crowd was nowhere to be seen yet, likely preparing a dramatic entry himself. The Keeper of Tales, they called him. Rockhoof was a very tall and good-looking hero. A relic from a bygone age that had only recently come back to life, with his origins in the northern part of Equestria she knew so little about. A demigod of sorts, now telling the most captivating stories, accompanied by wild gestures that gave it all an entertaining touch.
Or shovel.
It had always been an action-packed show, despite him being alone on stage. Some things were always sure to break. The first row was therefore considered the smash zone. As a young yak so eloquently put the week before, always warning unsuspecting newcomers about in goodwill, while taking a seat there herself. Recommended by her friends in this town, Daring had listened to almost all of his stories while appearing under her author alias, AK Yearling. But she soon revealed her true identity, as she became more and more intrigued by him, for professional reasons, of course. Or so she had thought. Her perspective of the stallion had shifted only after a few encounters, and he became much more to her than an archaeological wonder. His company felt natural to her, like a missing piece to a riddle she had been looking for without even knowing it. During the time she had spent with him after his storytelling, she exchanged many personal experiences from adventuring with him, soon realizing how much they had in common. She could almost feel his burning desire to accompany her to the southern regions, with its wild jungles and unforgiving deserts. Only a few days of travel away. He was eager for a change, to break out from his newfound role for a while, to make new memories, new stories. It would have been such a good excuse to ask her out on a trip. It all felt so frustrating, and she wanted the same thing, exploring the wild northern part of Equestria with him, by her side. Not as her guide, but so much more. Time was ticking, which she knew all too well, and she had heard from Twilight that Rockhoof wanted nothing more than a family in this new world, to give back more than words, a successor, a future Keeper of Tales, a daring Keeper of Tales, if it worked out right. The splintering of wood, followed by an excited yell of a young yak, brought Daring's attention back down to the stage, where Rockhoof yelled at the top of his lungs.
Are you ready for a story?
He smiled, showing his perfect teeth as roaring applause filled the hall. Even after having shown clear signs, he wouldn't dare make a move on her for the life of it.
What is he waiting for? He's the stallion.
Good thing she had an attentive purple alicorn friend who noticed the struggle and pushed her in the right direction. Because according to Twilight, in the ancient days of Rockhoof, a willing mare had to make the first move, not the other way around. And it had to be in a display of strength and bravery in front of the gathered tribe, that is, to make her claim known to all without dispute. Of course, it would be somewhat embarrassing to do this in front of a crowd, but she was as confident as a mare her age could be, and was more or less willing to show her honest intent. It actually seemed quite similar to how her parents had met, from what she remembered. Excitement made her shiver as she looked down at her newest artifact. The weekly story session would be the perfect place to make a truly valid claim. Even after many tales, the diverse audience was still listening with attention. The only disturbances being the rustling sound of popcorn and the slurping of brought-in soft drinks. The whole thing had become a valuable source of income for the local businesses in Ponyville. It made the experience come much closer to a theatrical performance or commercial movie screening than an old-fashioned storytelling.
And then I hit it with all me might, splitting the head of the foul creature in two,
Rockhoof announced, smashing the heavy head of his shovel into the wooden ground. Some unfortunate souls got hit by flying splinters, but that was part of the first row experience. At least for the axe. It was as good of a time as any. So Daring swung down by a rope in an arc close above the heads of the surprised audience, yelling,
Witness me!
With all the attention on her, she landed right in front of the stumped but blushing legend. Daring took the shovel's handle in her mouth, did a 180, and knocked Rockhoof out cold.
Mine!
No pony dared to move, or say anything.
Ooh, little adventure pony, just a yak!
Instead of sounding Irish or Scottish or whatever it was, I just sounded Australian. Oh god, I need to train myself more on that. Anywho, let's get down to our adventurous donators. Top donators: Jessie Smith, Zar630, BadassWaffle, Onlyonething, Ceru Orion, and Caladis. Magic, Jock, Luciisu, Darkside, Rayden, RuneScythe, Will, Twinkie, Luigi, Chancellor, Crust, Big Smoke, Murder Princess, LILmighty, Symphony, and many more fantastic people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and love life to the fullest.